Can you hear me? Yes. Good morning. My name is Michelle Schur, and I work here at B'nai Torah. I do a lot of different things here. I am a social worker, and I do senior programming, interfaith programming, mental health programming, a whole bunch of stuff that I bring here. And today is the first of 4 mental health wellness workshops that we have going on today. This season, this is the first one. So I welcome all of you, and I'd like to introduce our wonderful facilitator today, Dr. Cindy Collins.
You're not blocking it or not because they can see the screen.
No.
Can you sit in
No.
reminder? Yeah.
It's not good.
So I probably don't need a microphone, but if you have trouble hearing me, just raise your hand. But typically I'm asked, already you have trouble hearing me? Okay. If you have any trouble hearing me, let me know. Raise your hand. I don't want you to miss anything. But if I use the microphone, sometimes I've been asked to put it down. It's almost too booming, But you tell me. I'll use it if I need it. Okay. I'm so happy to see all of you. This is great. This is about transitions, which already has a little bit to do with age. All they have to see is the screen. You don't have to see me.
I'm walking the screen.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway. Okay. But I don't want to ask you your age. Don't worry. You don't have to tell anybody your age. But I will make this a little interactive because there's certain times I'm going to stop and ask a question so I can hear from you, like, wow, that's going on in your life. So we can do a little bit of sharing. And then right towards the end, I have an exercise. It's not get up and exercise, but a paper and pencil exercise. That's why we have it at a table. All right? So it's a short thing. It's nothing you necessarily have to even share with anyone else here. But I like you to be doing something interactive. For one thing, I can't lose anybody to sleep. I got to make sure you're awake, right? So I'll have you doing a little some activity there. All right. So for transitions, we all know what that means. It's just change, right? It's change from something to something else, but everybody gets a little feeling of stress when they think transition. Although it could be a good change, it could be invited even, but there's always something to adapt to, right? And that's really what my main gist is about this, is what are some of the hallmarks of going through a transition? Well, first of all, retirement is an obvious transition. When you first retire from a job or from a career, or even just something that you did as a hobby. Maybe you did sculpting, and you decide to put it down. You're no longer going to do it. So any kind of retirement, or from golf even, something like that. And transition can often just mean relocation, that you actually are having to move from one place to the other. Just raise your hand if you were not originally born in Florida. Yeah, see, so everybody here can relate to that you've had to transition from one place, at least one place to another, for many of us, right? So relocation is a big deal. It could even be in the same state, relocating. I talk to a lot of patients that I have that are older, where one or other of the spouse passes away, and then because of the way the money is at that point, they actually have to move. They have to relocate to be able to afford the mortgage of another home, things like that. So that's another way of transition. Health concerns are automatically a transition. A health concern means you need to change. Even if it's just here, you've got this change of taking a medication. That's already a type of transition. And maybe it's even more serious. You have to start changing your diet, or you have to keep getting more checkups or scans, or with heart disease, you're always checking things. So this brings us into the fact that these transitions aren't just physical. Now they're becoming mental, right? Because do you really think of yourself as a sick person? Or are you a healthy person who happens to have gout? Or are you a person who followed along with your family line, and now you also have the diabetes everybody else in the family seemed to get? You see what I mean? A lot of these are transitions that you may not have chosen had you had the ability to choose, and we're going to talk about that today. When it comes to health concerns, there are many instances where there are things you can do, but we still have to deal with the transition, small or large. What's small to one person may be large to another. One person may think it's no big deal that you have a little bit of high blood sugar. What's the big deal, right? So you eat a little differently. Somebody else might be very put out by that because they never had to think about it. They never even had a flu. Now they're thinking about blood sugar. So there's so many ways that health especially makes it a big transition. And then losses. You know, there are some psychologists who feel their whole model about life is that it's one loss after the other. They don't necessarily mean that in a depressing way, although we do need to talk today about what if that begins to feel depressing. They really mean to say that as you go from age to age to age, you're losing some of the potential things you could be and do. As you get older, you might lose the job you had. And then what happens when you're much older in your 7th, 8th, 9th decade, where you're going to get to 100 later? But what happens then? You lose friends as well, right? You lose loved ones. You lose family members. That's a very big transition. That's something that requires being accustomed to or adapting to. So we're not going to only talk about what the problems are today, but I'm going to give you some ideas and maybe some solutions on how to deal with transitioning. Another transition would be the fact that you can feel isolated. Now, to truly be isolated would mean that you're living somewhere where you can't get out, right? Someone who's homebound or someone who's in a place where they don't have transportation, something like that. But you can feel isolated without being truly physically isolated. And here's probably the one I hear the most about from all the patients I have that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s, This seems to make everyone feel isolated. This is an iPhone. Okay, how many people have one? How many people would like to throw it in the lake?
I don't have one.
You don't even have one. I don't either. You don't either. All right. So this thing that was supposed to connect us all, right? We're supposed to be connected to our grandchildren. You can FaceTime them, talk to people. We're connected to the world by Google, right? Anything anybody says now, hey, what's what and what? I always say, look it up on Google, right? Google it, Google it, Google it, right? That's all everybody is saying. And they're so dependent on it. But I'm finding many people feel very isolated because they're not really sure how to use it. They don't feel any more connected. And then it's frustrating. I was teaching my mother-in-law how to text me the other day. That's very confusing, isn't it? You put some letters in here, somehow they go over there.
Or someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Wrong person, yeah. So, and then I can tell when someone is feeling funny about the iPhone because I make a lot of calls for work. And I'll use the clinic phone to do that. But I don't have to always leave a message. Like I'll just make the call. I don't really want to put all this stuff on your phone, on your machine, if people even have a machine recorder anymore, right? So I'll get calls back to the clinic and they'll say, someone called my number. Who there called my number? Right? Because it feels like it's an intrusion. You want to know. If somebody has your number, you want to know. This is creating a lot of stress. This is a huge transition. And I'm going to ask you in a minute about, when I show a couple of other slides, some of the other things about transitioning with technology that you can tell me about, because I'm sure there's a big variety in here. Some of us have caught up with it, some of us don't want to catch up with it, some of us gave up on, even myself, I gave up on that little thing called the, it was an iPod for music, okay, and I had like 20 songs on it, and someone said, why would you bother, you only have 20 songs, you're supposed to have hundreds. I took it back and got my money back. Because I realized that's not for me. You know, I'm not utilizing it how I need to. Okay. All right, so now I bring it up because this guy, Hans Selye, is amazing. He did die in the 90s, but he is the father of stress. He's the one who let us know, like, so what? So what if you feel like you got to change and you got to adapt to all these new things? Why is that a bother? It's a bother because it causes physical body stress in addition to your mental stress. And he showed us how originally it can even affect your health. It really can. If you've ever gone through any of these stresses and found that you had some health concerns right after retirement or loss of someone or prolonged grief or anything like that, you'll understand. And we're not saying it's a direct cause, but it's part of the whole thing. The main thing here, I think, to look at is that he was very clear that good stress, which is eustress, like, yay, I won the lottery, okay? And bad stress, which is called distress, like, oh, I'm having to foreclose on my home. Your body doesn't know the difference. Your body finds both of those as stress because you have to change. It's all about adapting. Adapting is a new big buzzword inside word for all of us going through transitions. Because things will change, but can we transition? You see the difference? Things are going to change around you, but are you going to be able to live with it, deal with it, be happy with it? You can if you adapt. Adaptation means you meet the change. And I'm going to show you later some really, really good research showing how people who are, just because you're here right now, number one, and people who are doing well in their 70s, 80s, 90s, they are very good at adapting. How do we know? You're here. Okay, you're here, you're functioning, you're doing, you have purpose in your life, all of that. And we're really interested in health psychology, which is my field, bless you, in researching those kinds of things. We're really interested not to see how stress is so horrible. We want to see how are the people who are doing well doing well? Like why? What makes them do well? See, we could all learn from that, right? Okay.
Is there a reason why as you get older you have more stress?
Is there a reason why when you get older you have more stress?
Start to have stress.
Yeah, so what we have to tease apart when we do these questionnaires is, are you literally having more stress or feeling more stress? Start there, right?
Correct.
Because when you were 30 or 35, all kinds of things were happening, changing out of your control. It's the control factor. But when you're 75 and these things are happening out of your control, you're not as comfortable with being out of control, right? So, you know, they say the most stressful job. Does anybody know what the most stressful job is, what they say? Yes.
Air traffic controller?
Yes, and why would that be, you think?
If you don't do your job properly, there could be a lot of accidents, people dying. And so
Yeah,
on.
so the end result is horrifying if they don't do it well. But the other thing is, as they're watching what's going on with the planes, you know, on the radar, and they see something, they can't control it. They can only tell them, please control this, right? So they feel the least in control. So think about any job, even if you're volunteering or something like that, and you're feeling uncomfortable there, it might be that you have lack of control. You don't have a say in anything. That could be the reason, because at least in the research for stress from discomfort, stress from transitions, the negative stress, that's usually a matter of your level of control. All right, so this is just a little thing for me to say to you. Look, it is true that had the poor ear of corn worn better sunscreen, maybe he wouldn't have got the skin cancer,